Well, hello everyone. Welcome back. We've got an exciting guest for you today. We've got someone that you probably have interacted with. You probably know either very well or just a little bit. We've got Jules of the Woods with us. And
hello everyone. Nice to see you.
Hey Julie. And where are you
Hi,
where
Sim.
are you come from today? Where are you guys? What part of the States?
I'm coming from the deep south woods of Alabama,
All
down in Mobile
right.
County.
Yeah, I've been to your state briefly. We got lost coming down from Atlanta. My girlfriend and I were driving
That'll
to.
do it, yeah.
Yeah, took a wrong right turn, and all of a sudden we were in Bama. And there we were going through the deep woods all the way down to Florida. It was really quite an adventure. Yeah.
It is a lot of woods, isn't it?
Yeah, there were a lot of woods there.
But I'm just trying to get the hang of this stuff. Everybody out there, I am very new to the Zoom thing.
Well,
so
hey,
please be
Julie,
patient
you
with
did
me.
it. You made it to Zoom, and everyone, I'm sure, online wants to thank you
Yay.
for participating. I want to personally thank you before we begin. Jules took my RV class in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, a couple of years ago. We did a live class there before, while people were still doing live things in those days, and we had a great time.
Yeah, back when we could.
Yeah, we had a great class. It
Back
was a
when we
lot of
could.
fun. Back when we could. And Jules is really indispensable. Jules, I want to thank you for sending me articles and things I would have missed about science and things that are really relevant to what I do. And Jules kind of scouts things out and she sends things. So thank you for doing that. Now,
Oh, you're very welcome. Not a problem at all. You taught me so much. I feel like, it's the other way around.
oh, great. Well, when we met back there in Coeur d'Alene, you told me some very interesting stories, and I always wanted to get these recorded. I think folks would be interested in them. It'll explain a little bit why you're so interested in these topics. You're a witness to phenomena, as is your husband, Noel. And
Yeah.
I'm curious about what you've experienced. So
Yes.
we wanted to do this chat for all of you just so we could learn more about Jules' experiences and what's happened and what got you interested in all of this. So why don't you tell us what some of the experiences that you've had that you said you wanted to share these the other day when I did a live stream. I thought that's great. So Jules, what have you experienced that's really you found really fascinating?
Well, it started with seeing Sasquatch when I was about 8. I don't remember exactly how old I was because, when you're a kid, you really don't pay attention to that kind of thing. But I remember I was not too far in school and my brother, who is 4 years older than me, could pick me up and carry me at the time because that's what he ended up doing. We were out in front of our house, and at the end of our house, maybe 100, 150 feet away, was a woods. And we were in front of the house facing 2 other children playing Foursquare. I don't know if you remember Foursquare, the game, but you bounce a ball between 4 people, And they really didn't send it to me much because I wasn't really athletic. So I'm spacing off down the street. And lo and behold, picking berries in the woods, at the field of the woods, I could see him from about waist high up, was a Sasquatch. I didn't even know what a Sasquatch was at the time. It had the cone head. It had a caramel colored tan face, and the face was human. It looked like an Aboriginal Australian. It had a very flat, wide nose, and the hair was from the brow all the way to under the chin is where it started. It didn't have a mustache. Mm-hmm. It started under the chin. Mm-hmm. And the eyes were rounder than human eyes and black. So they were like black marbles almost. And its hair came down, no neck, like a cape. And the hair that came down over its shoulders and the shoulder parts of its back was longer than what was on its head and face. Mm-hmm. And you could see the hair. I mean, it was silky. It was shining in the light, because this was June in the sun, in the daytime, you know, like June or July. It was summer.
And what state was it?
It was in Indiana, where I grew up.
Right.
It was in Marion, Indiana, and which isn't like a big country place. We lived at the very edge of the city limits, and there was this woods, and then another road, and then a dump on the other side of that. So that kind of gave it credence, I guess, that it could have been living in the dump. I don't know if it is physical, which I am not convinced of. And its hair came down its arms to its wrists, and its hands had no hair on them, because I could see those too, because it was picking berries. Now, I don't remember seeing it eat any berries, but I saw it picking them. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, you know, staring down there at it, thinking, you know, what's that? And all of a sudden, it turned and looked right at me, like it felt me looking at him. And we made the eye contact for a little while, and it was almost like we were the only two in the whole world right then, you know, even though I had other people around me. And then he took 2 steps into the woods line, and it's like the spell was broken. And I got hysterical, almost like he had pushed hysteria on me, because I wasn't hysterical up to that point. I was just, you know, looking at this really weird thing. And I'm screaming and crying and yelling, big white hairy thing, big white hairy thing. And Robbie, my brother, picks me up, because he doesn't know what to do with me. He didn't see it. And carries me into my mom. And she's trying to calm me down and find out what happened and all this good stuff. And I finally got out to her what it was, you know, that I had seen. And she's like, well, it was probably Mr. Purvis in a parka. And I'm like, in summer? You know, why would Mr. Purvis be in a parka in summer, you know? Yeah. Plus, it was by no means a man in a parka. I had seen that before, you know? And then she's like, well, we don't talk about these things to other people, Julie. You should just keep this to yourself, which is usually the answer I got when something really bizarre happened. And so I really did for years, you know, kept everything to myself like that, except for, you know, a certain few people maybe. But yeah, that was my Sasquatch experience. I've never seen him again. But after I moved to Alabama, I used to get presents on my porch that were very odd. They would be like moss with little flowers in them, or a stick with moss on it laying on my porch, or a pretty rock, you know. Mm-hmm. But mostly it was moss, and there wasn't moss like right there around my house. And the dogs wouldn't have like picked up moss and brought it to the porch on several occasions, you know. So I think that possibly they've been watching me ever since. And that also started another thing, because like a couple of weeks after the Sasquatch thing, we were going to the grocery store, me and my brother and my mom, and I see this bubble up in the sky, and it looked like a soap bubble, a giant soap bubble off in the distance. And I'm watching it thinking, oh, that's pretty. And got a little closer, and all of a sudden it has light in it, the brightest white light I'd ever seen in the daytime in the sky. Mm-hmm. And this is suspended inside this soap bubble, because that's what it looked like. It had swirly colors, you know, swirling all around it. And we weren't the only ones to see this, because by the time we got to the parking lot, it was over the parking lot of the grocery store. And, you know, a light in a parking lot back in the 70s, you know, what are they, like 2 stories, 3 stories high tops? And it was maybe twice that high up. And as big as a car, you know. And then the light had a rectangular window open in it. And I saw humanoids. I saw people. I saw two blonde, long-haired men in silver. They all had on the same outfit. That was a bluish silver suit, tight. And people didn't wear tight things back then because, I mean, except for maybe disco, you know? And it had like V piping, like a triangle on the front, because I could see them also from the waist up, is all I could see. It was like they were looking out the window. And there was a blonde woman and an Asian or Indian looking woman with dark hair. And they all had on the same outfit. And all I can recall, and I think some of the memories are missing, is them waving at me and the window shutting. And then my mom was like, well, let's go in to the store, you know, like nothing happened. And I wanted to stay. I remember wanting to stay so badly, you know, but she was having none of it. And that's how that one ended. You know,
that was in Indiana.
Because when it came out, it was gone. I didn't see it.
In Indiana.
Pardon?
In Indiana.
Yes, in Indiana.
And the giftings that you said you found on your porch, where was that?
Alabama.
That was Alabama.
That was Alabama.
So
after I moved.
You had the Sasquatch sighting as a kid. How old were you again?
Maybe 8 tops.
8. And then
I wasn't very old.
Yeah, and then a couple weeks later, you see this bubble over the supermarket with humanoids inside.
Yeah.
And in skin-tight suits.
Yes.
Did they look at you?
Yes, actually, yes.
Did they see you? Or
they did. They waved at me.
They waved.
They waved at me, and I waved back. You know, they waved at me, and I waved back. And then Mom made us go in. And there were other people besides just us. There were like strangers I didn't know in the parking lot looking at this thing.
There were strangers
it was there.
looking at it too. Yeah. Other people were seeing it.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if they saw the window open up or not, but I did. It was very odd, to say the least.
What part of the 70s would this have been? Early 70s or late 70s or mid 70s?
Early 70s, because I was born in 66.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, it was probably between 72 and 76.
Right.
You know, I can't really pin it down any tighter than that. Because how old are you, like in the first, second grade? Because I think it was right around there.
You know, 6, 7.
And I'm not sure 8, how old.
6, 7, 8.
Yeah, well, I think it was right around there. I remember being at school. Well, I remember, you know, being at school, they always had us, the younger kids, in one side of the school. And then when you got older, you moved to the middle part of the school. And then when you were like 5th and 6th grade, you were on another side. And I wasn't yet out of the beginning side. So it had to have been kindergarten, 1st or 2nd grade. You know, I can remember it being that time period.
Yeah. You might be surprised.
Weird stuff.
There were sightings of that in the early 70s, of that sort of.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not intentionally bringing this up, but Peter Leather, that I mentioned in Black Swan Ghosts, the horse jockey from the UK that I mentioned, and I have his video up on the BlackSwanGhosts.com site. He remembers around that time period, I believe it was the early 70s, of an object came over his town low, and they waved at him in these suits, and he always felt like he wanted to see them again. A low flying ship, and he could.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to leave.
He could see them through the windows waving at him, and he became fascinated. And I'm just saying this because it reminds me of his story so much. Like, you're not the only one. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's cool, because I mean, I would have assumed I probably was a unique case in that.
You'd be surprised how many people won't talk about these types of contact. No, you're not alone. It just reminds me of his stories too, of as a youngster, these entities come over and wave, and other people saw it. He said it was so huge you couldn't miss it. It just reminds me of your story.
You couldn't miss it. It was big.
Hey, here we are.
And
we'll see
I wasn't old enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't like old enough to think, look in the paper and see if anybody saw it or anything like that. And now I don't have the time period, right? So I can't really go back and find out, but I know where it was.
Yeah.
If anybody ever reported, seeing a UFO over Hank South in Marion, Indiana,
You'd be surprised. It was the only big
supermarket then at all, period.
You would be surprised, Jules.
So, I might.
Even where I grew up, there were sightings in my neighborhood that I didn't know about till I read Linda Zimmerman's book, Hudson Valley UFO Sightings. And there were some.
Yes.
Just, same town, maybe a mile, 2 miles away from my house, or near friends of mine's. At the end of the street, they described the intersection. I said, and this is recently I read, I know where that intersection is. That's near Dominic's house. And, and I was just so surprised. And so you might read about it someday, the sighting of Hanks. Super.
I might, or someone may see this in Marion, and say, I saw that, or something happened to me then,
that'd be great.
Or something. You never know.
Any of you watching this know about the Marion, Indiana floating spherical UFO with
bubble with a light in it.
The bubble with a light in it. Yeah. Jules, how wide was, how large would you estimate this, if you can estimate it? How big would this
it was as big, it was probably as wide as a station wagon is long.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it was perfectly cylindrical, so map that out in your head, about the size of an old station wagon, back when they were big.
Yeah, I remember those.
It was quite large.
Yeah. Cylindrical.
Yeah, and it wasn't all that high up. Yeah, absolutely spherical. Yeah, it was a ball with a light suspended in the middle with no visible suspension. I remember that was amazing me. I'm like, how can that light be there with no wires or anything attaching it to the edges?
Does anyone know? I'm curious. That is just, well, you got me. It's another case, If I had met you earlier, Jules, you would have been in Black Swan Ghost, because this is exactly the sort of,
Oh, well, thank you.
experiences from people who've never really talked to anybody about their encounters. There's many.
Oh, yeah. And then,
yeah.
And after that, strange things would happen. I mean, we had poltergeist-like activity in the house. And, like, for instance, we had a corner shelf with a real nest with a ceramic owl in it for a decoration. And me and my sister and mom were, like, sitting in the living room, and that owl just jumped out of that nest right into the middle of the living room. And cabinet doors would open and close. We had a can opener with the handle like they used to have, and the handle, you could see it go down and start running at times and come back up with no one there. There was stuff like that it would just happen off and on. So that kind of stuff doesn't really faze me anymore. I was in a grocery store down here after I moved, and I'm just shopping and stop my little cart, and I'm going to look at meat. And I was looking at my lunch meat, and there's this old lady by me, and all of a sudden the cart takes off, going down the aisle by itself. So I just kind of looked at her, and then I went and got my cart and pulled it back. And then I stopped it again, and it took off again. And the old lady said, "I'm superstitious," and ran and left the store.
Sure.
And I just go collect my cart and keep continuing on down the aisle. You know, what can you do? But there's just been a lot of very anomalous activity in my life, actually. And just in it was the winter of 20, in between here and there's been other stuff, but Lord, it would take a long time to probably go over all of it.
Yeah. Okay. When did the Bigfoot giftings start?
They started in, let's see, I moved down here in 1997. And so they probably started nearly immediately.
Decades later.
Yes, decades later. But for all I know, they could have been watching me all that time. I mean, I had weird activity all along, you know, and maybe they just wanted to let me know they knew where I was.
Now, that's interesting.
It's sort of how I got the feeling.
So what you're describing is it's been experienced by many other people. You're aware of that. It's people find these little nature gifts around their property, or another way it can happen is they leave things out and something else is put there in its place, but not like, you know, an ordinary store-bought object or something like that. This is something from nature, a piece of moss, you know, like you're saying, some berries. They're just,
yes, it was always some pretty little natural thing that wasn't from around there. So I knew someone had to put it there. You know, because I'm like, where'd this moss come from? I don't even know where any moss like this is, you know, and it wouldn't happen all the time, but every now and again I'd come find a little present, and it'd be either on the railing or just right in front of the door on the porch.
Something else. Yeah.
You know, like it had been left there.
It's so common with other, I don't know if you're aware of this, it's so common with many other Sasquatch experiencers' stories, encounters. It's not just seeing one.
Well, you know,
it's objects left around that are just not quite from there. Someone intelligent's doing it, but it's someone that's not the person you usually know as your neighbor.
Right. And I lived, when this started happening, I lived on 86 acres of woods up in a cabin on a hill. There was no one around, you know, and if someone came up there, my dogs would have let me know. They were my 2-minute warning, because I had a 1/4-mile driveway. Mm-hmm. And so I always had 2 minutes, you know, to get ready for anybody coming, because I knew they were coming from the dogs.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and so I couldn't figure out who was doing that, because they wouldn't have let anyone come up there without me knowing it. You know what I mean? And another thing that happened at that house, it's not the property I live at now. I lived there for 13 years, and I've lived at this property for 10. But another thing that happened at that property was I had a leak in my bathroom, and I had my animals, and my landlord didn't like it, even though I paid extra to have them. You know, he always griped at me about my critters. And so I didn't want to call him for this leak for my life. And I was all upset and just crying, and couldn't get it to shut off, didn't have a wrench big enough to shut the water off, and didn't know where the outside thing was, because, you know, I'm a girl. And and so I'm crying and praying and not knowing what to do. And I get this feeling just to go outside and cool off and get a calm head. And so I go outside, and I'm walking around my little circle driveway, and lo and behold, in my driveway is a plumber's wrench to fix this leak.
Wow.
And like I said, no one came up there ever, you know, unless they were lost or coming to see me.
Yep.
And I got a miracle wrench and didn't have to call the landlord, and was able to turn off the leak, and was very, very thankful, I might add.
Thank you, Sasquatch.
I was very, very thankful.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, I was very, very thankful. And
So there's
there
just
could
a
have been a
plumb.
port, like Grant talked about.
Yeah. There's just
Go on.
no. There's a plumber's wrench just lying in your driveway that had never.
Yes. No reason to be there, wasn't there before. And not a small one. We're talking a plumber's wrench that's like 1.5 feet with the giant head.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Because that's what I needed.
The big one that really had a lot of torque to it. Yeah. With the long handle.
Yes.
You could really get a grip.
To go on a big pipe that's under a sink. One of those old sinks.
Oh, yeah.
And it was exactly what I needed. And so I was very, very thankful, and I chalked it up to a miracle, and then let it go at that, because I believe in miracles. I have to. I've had a few.
Yeah, that would definitely qualify as one for me. That is fascinating. Wow.
Well, and then after I met Noel and we moved here,
mm-hmm.
more strange things happened. And I know that they often say that these things happen when you're in a time of trouble, and we were in a time of trouble. Noel had gotten hurt at work. He hadn't gotten any Social Security yet, and because they were fighting him on it. So we were living off like my Social Security, and the power had got cut off, and we didn't have phones or anything. We were doing everything we could just to keep this land and live on it, with very little money. And one night I'm up because I barely sleep. Most of the people on the internet know that.
I didn't know that, but I know that now.
I'm up, and it's like, look, I'm on the internet a lot more than you, and that's why. It's because I never sleep.
I get it.
It's like 3 a.m. It's like 3 a.m, and I'm walking up to the front of the RV because we live in an RV. You might be able to tell. And I see this pulsating white light down in the bottom on our land because we have 9 acres, and it's situated so that there's a high part, and then it goes down into a lower part. We've got like 3 different biomes. It's really nice. And down in the bottom is this bright pulsating white light just going like bright nothing, and continuous. So I wake up Noel. I'm like, somebody's down, in the bottom. Look at this. And so he got up and he looked and got dressed and went down there. And here's where our stories get a little different, because I remember him gone over an hour. And I mean, I had gotten to the point where I'm like, and he had taken the rifle with him because, we thought it's probably meth people down there with, we didn't know. We weren't thinking, we just knew somebody was down there. And so he took the rifle and he's going down there to see what's going on. And I'm like, am I going to take the pistol and go down there and find him? Am I going to call the cops and say there's this light on my property and my husband's gone now? What am I going to do? I was really starting to get worried. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden he came back, and I should let him tell you what happened from there on, because like I said, his story is a little different at this part. Would you like to see Noel?
Yes, please. No, I'm curious. You've mentioned this before. I'd like to hear his description of what was down there. Please do.
Okay. Well, he just said I could go on and tell him the rest of the description of the next couple of days, but I think would you like to come on?
I can.
Okay, he's coming.
Yeah,
I'm going to let him talk to you a minute.
What was your version? I heard Julie tell me this story.
Look right there.
When we met. What happened? Why don't you tell it in your own words from your perspective?
Yeah, that's where you look.
And that's probably the best way, because my perspective is definitely different, especially on time. But she woke me up, and of course she shows me this light strobing, and it looks like it's on our property. In the far back, and I'm like, that ain't right. So I jump up, and I just got my boxers on, so I grab it was a pair of Dickies. It's like a coverall but warm because it was wintertime. So then I grabbed the rifle, a flashlight, but when I go down there, which I have trails through our land that I keep cut, Well,
Zeus, come here.
Zeus, my boy, he can't stand it. Anyway, so I go down there and I say, I'm not going to let them know I'm coming with my flashlights. I know my trails like the back of my hand. So I just ease on down there. And according to what I think, it's about 10 minutes that it takes me. And that's about what normally would take me to walk down there, you know, not at a fast pace, but just easing down, about 10 minutes. So when I get down there, it makes a curve at this particular end. And then I remember I fell in a hole that was like about a 2 foot and it was covered with pine needles. So I didn't see it, and it's dark. You know, I wasn't using the flashlight, and it had been raining before that, so it was wet. And I fell down with the rifle, and I stand up like, you know, you do when you fall, and you're like, did somebody see me? But I just froze for a second. When I froze there, I started listening around me, and I hear an incredible noise of trilling, almost like a clicking and trilling that it's not like, because I started going, could that be a woodpecker? Could that be a squirrel? You know, I'm starting to go through my head. And then not only do I hear one over on this side, but then I hear one, you know, at like, I guess that would be 90 degrees, you know what I mean? Off to the side. And I'm like two of them, and I'm listening still because this is tripping me out, the sounds and things. Well, the next thing that happened was that the hair started to stick up on my neck and arms. And I'm not a fearful person. I mean, I was ready to go down there and even confront whatever was there. But at this point, this stood up, and I could tell that whatever it was, they were communicating, and they were flanking me from both sides. There was one on each side, and I just said, you know what? Y'all can do whatever. And I was like, I'm out of here. So I just headed back up the trail at a quick pace. And I come back, and that's exactly what I basically told my wife, and that it was a really shocking.
He was scared,
yeah,
and visibly shaken, and it was. Yeah. He doesn't get that way.
Hello, Sam. This is the video that you requested about the trails and so forth and the vantage points of view. Our RV is right there. That's the front of it. Towards this direction here is where we saw the strobe light, and it was so bright that you could see it throughout the whole sky. So if you were out here at night, or even inside looking out a window from around this area, you would be able to see that strobe light. Of course, it was, like I said, about 3 in the morning. Okay, and the trail that I went down is right over here. If she'll be walking behind me, you might not hear me talking if I'm facing the other direction, but the trail is here.
And if I trip, I'm blaming you, Sim.
Yeah, definitely. Take your time. That particular night, I was taking my time as well, but still taking my time down this trail is still fairly safe. We just had a storm recently, and even have some trees that are down in the thing, and you still get through it fairly quickly.
And we were also going to explain that our land is L-shaped, and it goes down behind these other houses.
Right. There's 3 acres on this side and 3 acres on that side. We have 9 in between, which goes behind these over here. So the next 2 properties, we're behind. So this is the trail, and I ease my way down there.
And he said he could see the light the whole time.
Yeah, down here.
I'm going to fall. Okay.
Be careful right through here.
Here comes one of our jets. That are always buzzing us. Hang on.
Come on, step over.
Give me a hand. Okay. Yeah, Hurricane Sally went through here, and Etta, I think Zeta, I'm not sure which one it was. We've had a few.
So we'll continue down this pathway, and I'll show you just how far we went. which was probably only equal to about 3 acres, maybe. Of course, you can see that it's been cleared many times, but I haven't been down here recently. Yeah, definitely I was trying to be quiet, so I was moving a lot like this. The weather was a lot like this, as far as... right.
You know, and I'm like, don't go back down there. You know?
I mean, I even grew up in Los Angeles. I mean, I've known danger my whole life, you know, like that. But that scared me. For the first time, I was really feeling like I was, even with the rifle, I felt like, no, this, I could start shooting or whatever, but whatever this is not normal. So I had those feelings about that, and I came back up, and at that point, like I said, I told her, and probably from here, she could tell you the next couple of days, but the day after, because in my mind, I told her, I'll check it out in the light tomorrow.
Right.
When I can see fully.
Yeah.
So I go down there the next day, and I come back up here and she says, was anything down there? And I said, no, but I do have a memory of seeing a being that was well, it looked like a cross between maybe an alligator and a lizard man off in our woods. But he was almost like he camouflaged and was gone. And so I said, no, there was nothing down there, but this is what I think I saw. So at that point, you know, I hadn't really been able to put it all together in my mind. You know what I mean? That this thing was looking really scary, the whole situation. But anyway, from that point, I didn't go back down there for some time, and actually, we still have not.
We don't go down there very much.
We haven't spent as much time. If you even went down my trails, you could tell there are trails, but I don't keep them as trim. I haven't spent as much time down in those woods as before. But down in this direction. So my trail doesn't follow exactly on the property line. The way I've done it is it kind of curves through here. So at this point, I curve a little bit this way. There's some more trees that are down there.
Hope I'm not making anybody nauseous by the camera movements.
To do anything else than this, but I hope it shows you enough. This is a little area we call TC's Pond. Deer come and drink here. And it's a very pretty place, especially in the spring and summer.
And it has frogs. It's a little spring.
Yeah. We even got some of the pitcher plants right there.
Yeah, and there's my little pitcher plants.
So, carrying on. I came down here, and we're almost to where I stopped. It comes over this way, and then it curves back over that way to another trail that continues down. So I went through here. And right here. Now, I'm not sure which one it is. If it was this one or this one here that are still covered up, but it was so much deeper then, almost like 2 foot. I remember my leg being wet all the way up onto it. But I fell down right here.
Where would the light have been from there?
This direction. And
Let me get a picture of it. Hang on.
Okay. So over in this direction. And this is where when I got back up and I studied myself and I listen. First sounds I heard were coming from over here. Seemed like it couldn't have been further than right behind those trees. Then the other place when I heard was directly back here somewhere where I heard the other. This is where the point came that I said, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I'll check with this in the morning. In my mind, I'm like, it's time to go. And then we turned around and went this way. And right here is like the back marker of that property. So more or less, maybe 3 acres, and we own.
So it had to have been on our property.
Another 6 acres.
Yeah,
back here.
that's our property for 6 acres. So it had to have been on our property.
It's behind we have behind the next 2 neighbors, and then we don't have a whole lot that way. It goes like at a big angle down that side, but most of it's right down there. Most people didn't want this lower land, so it's why it was still left. But we got blessed with the water and all those things here. And it is beautiful right now.
And that only took 3.5 minutes. You were gone for over an hour.
And then you would imagine a brisker step on the way back up. So, see this, just so you can kind of see, if I would have continued on, I would have come right to here. And this is my other trail that goes down to what we call the flower field. It's a wild flower field.
They very possibly could have been in the flower field.
It didn't matter at that point. But
Sorry.
yeah, so right down there, and then, of course, it goes all back that way and back around and up that way.
It's the same direction that you pointed to for the light.
That's what I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But, we can. Definitely the woods go down at an angle, and I'm not sure what the exact elevations are, but it's probably a good 30 foot or more from top to bottom, if you were actually to figure out the footage of drop.
It's at least.
Yeah, at least.
I'd say it's more than that.
Well, just the hill is probably a 20-foot drop where we walked down at first, and then whatever it declines slowly at. But anyway, from there, she could probably tell you some more about the experience that happened within the next day or two.
Like 2 days later.
Yes.
Please do, yeah.
Well, you saw it first.
Well, I did. What happened was, at that time, she was telling you we were in a really dire straits, and we were running on the Onan generator that can power this thing. So I went out to literally put gas in, and out of the corner of my eye, I see some flash. So it makes me turn and start looking, and I don't see nothing. But when I come back around to the gate to come in the other side, I saw it again. So I start watching and I see a light, and it's going in a big giant circle. And I mean giant, where it takes.
We could only see half of it. It was a blue beam going perpendicular to Earth. It wasn't shining on the Earth.
Right.
It was shining in the sky.
Right.
And it was a blue beam.
And it would disappear, and we'd wait, and then all of a sudden we'd see it over in the yonder coming back around. So we knew whatever it was, or I knew whatever it was huge. And then I came in and said, Jules, you have to come see this. So she comes out. We stand there and look at it for a minute from
one side of the RV.
Right, which is a dog pen on that side. It's fenced in. And then to get a better vantage point, we walked around it to the other side where it's more open, not as many trees. At that point, we just stood there in awe.
Maybe for a half an hour it was there. Yeah. And then I saw the beam suck in and the thing shoot off.
Right.
Just as a little tiny blue point of light. And he didn't see that part because apparently he wasn't looking right at that moment because it was there a long time.
Right. So we talked and we looked at it, and so I figured that I missed that because I remember her saying this, but I said, I didn't see what it took off, but it was no longer there.
Yeah, he says he remembers me saying it. It's gone. It took off or something like that because it did. But then it came back, and it went around the sky again for a while. And I didn't see it leave. I think we got tired of watching it, or we just came in. I don't know why we would, but it was cold.
Yeah, like I said, some of our memories are
they're a little fuzzy,
and different slightly, but most of it's the same. And so we're not sure, how came about, but I know that we're close on a lot of it, but some of it is just like I don't remember quite that. Just like the time frame that she's saying I was gone longer, and but later on I start to think things like, hey, maybe they already had me, and they're the ones that dropped me into that puddle of water, and then all of a sudden I hear them backing off. I don't know, but
because I thought he was gone. He was gone over an hour. He was, and he says he thought he was gone like maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because on the way back I was in a hurry. I wasn't running, but I was walking briskly on my way out of there. And the way down, I was easing down so I wouldn't be heard or seen.
Yeah, sure.
You know, because I was saying I'm gonna find out who's down there.
Yeah.
So,
wow, that's quite a discrepancy.
It was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Did the light go out?
She told me that, and I was like,
did the light go out after a while?
I don't remember.
Or what happened?
Are you talking the blue or the strobe?
The strobe. Whatever happened
The blue
to
one or the strobe or the
strobe?
like,
The first night, the strobe.
That strobe stayed all night.
It stayed there all night.
All night it stayed there, but I wasn't going back down.
Yeah, it stayed there until I finally fell asleep. You know, a couple hours later, it stayed there. But we weren't going down there. You know, again.
What was it technically on your property? Was it on your property or?
Yeah.
As far as I could tell.
Yeah.
But I didn't make it. But I want to say about maybe 2/3 of the way down onto our property before that I fell in that hole.
Yeah.
And from that point there, I wasn't going further.
You weren't going further.
I still had more trails to go down, and it was like, no, this stuff stood up, and it let me know, like Spidey sense, oh, you got to get out of here.
Yeah.
That is not.
That's interesting. What sort of ground was it down there where the light was? Was it dry? Was it wet? Was it in the middle?
Everything was fairly wet. We have 2 springs, so we do have water on our land, there's no doubt. But it had rained, and where I was wet, and probably, like I said,
everything would have had to have been wet.
At least you would say surface wet, but there was enough that this hole held water enough that got my legs wet and everything when I fell down, and tripped me up good. In fact, that hole's probably still there. It's maybe not be as deep, but yeah,
it's swampy in places down there. We've got rare plants. We've got sundews and
so it's brushy
plants and
okay. I see.
Yes, it's woods and brush and
lots of pines,
we've got
a few oaks,
a wildflower field that is open, but I don't think it was there. I don't know. He says he saw the light shining up until he, turned around and booked away.
It's not the type of
the strobe.
It's not the type of place where people normally would just go walking in the middle of the night.
Oh no,
it's inaccessible.
Yeah, it's inaccessible. Only ones that could are our other neighbors, which I only have. Let's see, like 3.
We had 3 at the time that might have been accessible to it.
Yeah, but
what would they have been doing?
But they own acres too, and out late at night like that. Yeah, that's.
It didn't make any sense. It just really didn't.
So.
And I think when I first told you about this in Coeur d'Alene, you said, and I told you we thought it might have been meth dealers or something. And you're like, why would meth dealers have a strobe light?
Yeah, normally when you're, that's what you said, Jules. You normally, when you go trespassing on other people's land, you don't bring a strobe light. Right?
No, not usually.
Right. And that's what made it so drawing for me to go check out what the heck it was anyway. Because if I remember right, we were, she goes that way, and I'm thinking, well, what if somebody crashed down there or whatever, or, and they're putting out a strobe, they don't know where they're at.
Yeah.
But
somebody down there needed help, or something. We didn't know. We had no idea what it was. No. It was bizarre.
Can you guys describe the pulsation of the frequency? How rapid was the strobing? Was it quick? Was it a slow? Was it kind of fading in, fading out? Just describe it.
It was slow and steady.
Mm-hmm.
It was slow and steady, and it was like it would grow and then shrink,
Got it.
and then grow and then shrink.
So it looked a lot like a regular
it was
strobe, but slower. And she's right. It would seem
It
just
was
like,
more pulsating than a strobe.
but it was a constant.
And it was always the same time.
Right. And there is no towers, nothing back there, nothing.
And plus, this was on the ground, obviously, because it was
On the
coming
ground.
through and up and out of the trees.
Right.
Man,
Yeah.
oh man.
Had to be low.
It had
that
to have
was
been low.
very brave of you, Noel, to go down there facing something that we may not
Or
even
stupid.
have
I don't know.
any idea what you were
I don't know. But yeah,
encountering, who
I
were you
mean,
encountering.
we care about our property.
Sure.
We really want to sustain it and protect it from, anybody, not only just trespassing, but anyone who wants to litter, illegal dump,
Poach. We don't
whatever.
want any of that here,
Right. More or less, because enough of the world is already being destroyed.
Yes,
Sure.
sure.
And we said we can't do everything, but this 9 acres we
We're gonna
bought,
keep.
and we're going to take care of it.
And we let it be natural. We may manicure it, but we don't really change it.
Right.
We want it to stay nice.
Yeah. I totally understand. That's
And I've had a few other things happen in my life. I guess we're alike souls. I don't even know if she told you, we were born only 5 days apart.
wow.
Mine is the 14th, and hers is
The 19th, it's coming up.
Yeah,
We're both O negative blood types.
Oh, yeah.
born the same year,
Me
just
too.
5 days
Yeah.
apart. But
You too?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
and we've done some research in that too. Definitely. But we have seen some things in our lives, no doubt. But this one was the most biggest and most obvious to me when that thing came, that was nothing from here, and it was huge.
It was huge, and I got the feeling they were looking for whoever it was the few days before.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
That was the
Was it
that
over?
was the impression I got.
Yeah. So
that
this beam, they were over your property again, or was it in the distance?
No, actually, to this side.
it was to the south.
To the
So
south.
they could have been.
Right.
To the south of us is 60 miles of land and then the Gulf.
Right. So
And
with this beam, though, it
was going so far around, and
Right.
I mean, it would take it.
and that's why it caught me, because you'd see it in the sky, in clouds or tree, whatever. It was bright, and it came around. It was amazing.
And it was the bluest blue. I've never seen like a spotlight like that.
Yeah.
It was a very azure color, and shined. And the beam itself, well, if you had pulled up your finger to it, it'd probably be like 3 fingers up in
Got
the
it.
sky wide, and it shot out completely as far as we could see. And it was a quite wide beam,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and it was different. And I asked, I didn't have a whole lot of friends around here, and I asked if anybody else had seen it to my one friend, and they're like, no, we didn't see anything, and it was, I don't know what time of night it was. It could have been any time, because we would have had to gone out at all hours to put gas in that generator.
Every 8 hours. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
every 8 hours. So it could have been any time. I just know it was night.
and we know it was winter, because
It was
we were
cold.
running that because we were running heaters, so that much I know for sure.
And what around what
And it's been a while.
When would that
when
have-
do you think, what year?
Yeah.
Well,
Roughly.
we lost our power in 2013. I know this for a fact. So it would have been the winter months of 2013, or the early winter months, because we only have winter till February here.
More or less.
So it would have been between December and February 2013, 2014.
Got it.
I know that.
Wow.
It was extremely strange, But then again, like I said, strange things have been happening to me most of my life. And Noel's had a couple too. So we sort of just chalked it up to that's another strange thing, you know? And it was a pretty amazing. And
we felt pretty blessed to be able to see such a thing. They obviously didn't want to harm us because whatever they were definitely powerful enough to do so. But
they didn't.
Right.
So, you know, as far as we know anyway, neither of us have ever been regressed or anything, but these are real conscious memories.
And just like when I decided to turn around and leave, they didn't come after me, so they let me go, you know. So I don't know that they meant harm or not, but I do know this. I was scared.
Yeah,
it's not very often that I get scared just out of anything like that, you know.
No, there's a guy around here that told me
that in itself.
He was walking around here where I live in the Rockies, and the hair stood up on the back of his neck. He got that fear response you're talking about. He turned around and there was a cougar walking right behind him. So that is an instinctual response we have to danger. That's pre-conscious. You don't even know why you're afraid, but you trust that feeling on the back of your neck that the hair's standing up.
Right.
You know, when we had more hair, it would have made us look bigger.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong, and you just know. You know, tell you and that's what you experience, which is very reliable. It's very reliable. It's kept us alive for millions of years, right? So, or hundreds of thousands. Yeah. So, yeah. Wow. It's quite a story. What did the sounds? Noel, what did it actually sound like? Trilling, clicking, like communication between two beings? What?
Both. Yes, absolute communication for sure. That was my when I fell and I got to my feet again and stood still because I was like, it made a lot of noise when I fell. You know, when I was creeping down there. So I went still, and then I hear somewhere towards the front of me, and I hear the first trilling and clicking noises.
Is it like the trilling noise that I make?
No. And the clicking was more. There was no rhyme or rhythm to that. It was different, but they were the same clicking trillings, but definitely
from both sides.
Yes, and when I realized that after this one stopped, this one went. That's when everything just went, oh, Lord, I'm being flanked. I don't like this. Everything, you know. I couldn't, I knew it was no sound I've ever heard. So.
I had that same response.
And that's pretty much how it went.
I had that same response once when I was out in the property. I had something like that happen to me with coyotes where I had a small dog with me, and they were talking with the dog, and the dog was getting afraid, a young dog. And the dog was starting to shake.
Yeah.
And I could feel something coming around the sides. And I got that same response that you're talking about. I put the dog in the car and locked the doors. I actually locked the doors because I was like, you know, I could feel something coming around the sides. I know what that feeling is. You don't have to second guess it. You just know something's coming around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right, something is not right.
Yeah,
that's happened other times in little different situations, but not like this because it was definitely for me at that time in my life. I was fearful, and I hadn't felt any fear for not true fear like that, where I feel like I'm the prey.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Something's going to happen to you bad.
Yeah, and, right. It's instantaneous.
Like, gotta go.
Yeah.
I just turned around, didn't fire shot, nothing. I just turned around and started headed up.
Yeah.
I've had that. Gone longer than he remembers being gone.
That's very interesting.
Right. Because if you think about the time frame, I say about 10 minutes or so walking down before I fell into this. And you'll see if I walk you down the trail, you're going to see the time frame it takes me to get there. Even at a slow pace, you could see it's not going to take that long. And then once I fell down and I got up, that only, to me, transpired as, it could have been a minute maybe, but that would seem long. but I froze, listened, heard these things, the natural reaction, I'm out of here. And that's how it went for me.
Yeah.
And I'm headed back up at a brisk pace, back up the trail.
He was gone an hour and a half.
According
At least.
to her.
I don't know how to make
I had
sense
gotten
of it.
scared.
I don't know how to make sense, but there is a memory
don't
there that you can't place, which is seeing something that looked like a alligator reptile on two legs. Is that what you're telling us? Somewhere in there?
Yes.
That was the next day when you went down there.
Yeah, that was during the day, the next day.
Oh, the next day you went down.
That I have this memory. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But because it like camouflaged, and then I'm like, is this real? Is this?
Yeah. Did he see it or not? Is what he was thinking.
I'm starting to think all these things. And I realized that I was down there to look and see what was there. It wasn't until after the next thing happened that all things started to fit together, and we started to come up with, hey, something happened here for real.
And they were coming back to find him or to hunt for him or something.
But,
that's all we could figure, is that the blue beam thing was scanning for whoever wrecked a couple nights before. Is what we were thinking. Well, hopefully they found him,
And then we wondered about it. We start thinking, if we start thinking about everything, like, okay, say they send, this is a real UFO. Say this is an alien life form. They send out a signal, okay, a distress signal. Okay, how long would it take to come from another galaxy if they have high powers?
Or a dimension or
wherever
they come from.
And that's going to take a little bit of time for sure, even with the highest technology. So, like I said, some of it started to really fit together.
It was weird. Just honestly.
It was weird. It was exciting, amazing, all these different things.
Mm-hmm. And we told a couple people about it. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of friends at the time,
right.
But some people that we were, doing odd jobs for extra money. Cause like I said, we were in dire straits. We talked to them about it, and they were like, no, we didn't hear anything about weird lights or anything like that. So we left it at that. We really didn't. I never even considered reporting it or anything. I kind of feel like that's almost disrespectful to whoever's coming to report them, though. I know that's probably not what people who wanted to gather all the information want to hear.
And the truth is when it comes to government and all, I really don't want to be in their spotlight. That does not seem safe to me, so better to keep it to yourself. And I guess it wasn't until she met you.
Well, right before I met you, I got the feeling it was time to start looking into it. It's time to start talking about it.
Did you?
It just hit me.
Did you guys, were there any traces where the object might have landed or been, where the strobe was? Was there any disturbance to the vegetation?
Okay. I did not see anything that looked to be like a craft site or anything like that. That bothered me. And of course, because you're thinking after all this stuff, hey, there's got to be some trace, broken branches, something.
Right,
right. So I go scouring all around our land down there when I'm down there, but I don't see anything like that. And so then I even thought, oh, well, maybe it was a little further past our land, but we don't trespass on other people's stuff, just like we don't expect them to trespass on ours. But yes.
But he did see the weird lizard man that ended up disappearing.
Yes. And that freaked me too, but because I kept saying, did I really see that? Because it's gone now. Did I really see it or not? And so we're secure with the way we know what we saw. Now, we don't know we don't even know if, with technology like that, if they could even change our memories, just like she says an hour, I say 15 minutes. Did they have me? Did they drop me in that puddle? And that's when I became aware, when they dumped me off.
Noel's not as deeply into researching the phenomenon as I am. So,
right.
But I do she keeps me well informed on what's happening in the world and the phenomenons, because I am very interested in them, because I have had other things happen in my life as well. And so I trust in her to keep me informed on that when I have to go out and do things that keep us sustained, you know. So
yeah, he runs the real world and I run the paranormal one.
but we do join together there, you know. We are like-minded and all that. We believe that there are all possibilities in reality, in you know, all the things that I've heard you guys talk about, you know, the very manifestation of consciousness and all these things. This is what is really out there, and people don't really realize how powerful they could be, or, you know, basically we're hijacked. Most of them, I was hijacked for years, you know, just following the normal every day, go to work, make the money,
Zeus.
come home.
No.
You may get 1 or 2 days off a week, you know, standard living up until a certain part of my life.
When you got hurt, you know, right before this sighting, it was probably a year before this sighting you got hurt, actually, because we didn't lose the power right away.
No.
Yeah. So it was about a year before this sighting, he got hurt and was working no more. And that's pretty much it, Sim.
Well, guys, I really want to say thanks.
Like I said, there are other things in his and my.
No, thanks. This is great. It's really great stuff.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And I'm sure.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to share it.
No. This is great stuff. I'm sure the audience.
Somebody else.
Yeah, right. Maybe somebody else.
Hello. We're here to show you what from the area from which we saw this. Okay. This way is south. Pardon me, west, east, north, and south. Okay, and when we saw it, it was just a beam, and we couldn't see the source of the beam. It was too far away. All we saw was this blue beam, and it would scan the entire course of the sky.
Right.
And let him spin around a little, let you see the expanse of our view. And the trees were probably a little smaller back then, but not much. And then when it zipped off, that's our dog Zeus. He's mad because we didn't bring him out. But it zipped off to the south after it contracted into just a little point of blue light. And then the blue light, with paranormal speed, zipped to the south.
Which south is?
That way.
This direction.
And then it returned. We didn't see it zip in, but the beam started going around again. And like we were saying, I'm not even sure how much longer it stayed there, because at some point, I don't remember it leaving, and neither does Noel. But we went inside.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, it was really cold. And
we wasn't doing anything different. And we just, after I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or something, we just went in.
Said, well, you do what you do. Blue beam of light, and we're going to go in and leave you alone.
Yeah. And the heights, if you see the tree line of those pines in the background, Sim, I would say the beam was about 100 foot above that, so maybe 150 foot off the ground. I'm pretty decent with heights because I used to do electrical. I was an industrial electrician, and, you know, we put in conduit all over plants, and so we're pretty good at judging heights and distances. But it was not over our property, but over towards the property, the 3 acres on that side.
Yeah, the originating point was somewhere to the west.
Yeah.
But it zipped to the south. And
let's see.
Just pan around for him, and then that ought to
That's
do
a good spot. Was there any other things that we're possibly forgetting on that?
Not that I can think of right now. Yeah. Sim, if you have any questions for us, let us know.
I do know this. I can give you an idea of kind of how long the beam took to go around, because somewhere it must have been that I got, maybe it seemed like a 25 Mississippi or so.
Yeah, it took at least a minute to make a full circle.
Right, so we're talking something that looked very huge, but yet we could not see the source, just the light moving around in a perfect circle.
Yeah.
So we can't explain any more than that. It was definitely something to see up there in that sky up there, and it was beautiful, and it was also just a tad,
awesome,
yeah,
and it was strange, and
all those things.
And none of it hurt us, so
right.
So we left it be.
Okay.
Thanks,
if you think of anything else that we can possibly help you with, just all you got to do is let us know.
Let me say bye.
Okay.
Goodbye, YouTube.
Bye.
Jules of the Woods and her husband Noel. Wishing you all many wonderful and magical experiences.
Thanks. Bye.